Clear. So first branch which arises from this splenic artery is called the dorsal pancreatic artery. Here is that. Okay, dorsal pancreatic artery. Clear, dear friends. So the first branch which arises from the splenic artery is called the dorsal pancreatic artery. Now follow me, friends, what I want to tell you, then we will write all these points there, right? Look, the first branch which arises from this splenic artery is called the dorsal, as it is present on the dorsal side of what? Dorsal side of pancreas, that's why we call it dorsal pancreatic artery. Okay, done with it. The first branch, it goes to the posterior side of the pancreas. As let me draw this pancreas here, and friends, if this is our pancreas, right, this is pancreas, okay, then here is our celiac trunk, right, and from celiac trunk there is the splenic artery. Okay, this is our splenic artery. Now you will see all those branches. The first branch which arises from it is called the dorsal pancreatic artery. I have drawn this small diagram to clear all your doubts here. It goes to the dorsal surface of pancreas and then enters the neck of the pancreas, and then it divides into two branches, the right branch and the left branch. The left branch anastomoses with another artery that we will see while we are discussing about the common hepatic artery and its branches. Then this branch will make anastomosis with the transverse pancreatic artery. So look carefully. So this first branch is our dorsal pancreatic artery. Okay, then we move further forward and see what are the other branches. Look carefully, friends. From here there is an artery which separates. Okay, there is a doubt about this artery. Some books says that this artery, which is called the transverse pancreatic artery, this is our transverse pancreatic artery. Some books says that this artery arises from this dorsal pancreatic artery, or some books says that this transverse artery directly arises from the splenic artery, right? So this is our transverse pancreatic artery. Okay, we are done with this. This is our transverse pancreatic artery. Okay, the third artery which arises from the splenic artery towards the pancreas, again this is our greater pancreatic artery, and it arises from the splenic artery and comes and make anastomosis with the inferior with the inferior pancreatic artery or the transverse pancreatic artery. So it makes anastomosis here and mostly supplies the body of the pancreas. Clear? Okay, then when the splenic artery moves forward, here is a branch which arises from splenic artery and enters the tail of the pancreas. That's why we call this artery as artery to the tail of pancreas, right? So these four branches, these four branches are the branches of the splenic artery which arise from it and directly supply the pancreas. You can see I have drawn the diagram here, right? So let's do it. The dorsal pancreatic artery is the artery which arises from the splenic artery. So let me write it here as a branch of splenic artery. Okay, done with it. Then when it moves down to the dorsal of pancreas, moves inferiorly to dorsum of pancreas. Okay, then what does it do? As you can see here, it enters the neck of the pancreas and then divides into right and left branches. So I am writing here, it divides into right and left branches. Okay, done with it. Then what happens? The right branch supplies the head of the pancreas, and the left branch supplies mostly the neck and the body of pancreas. So the right branch supply not only this artery, there are other arteries which will come and make anastomosis with it, but we should know that the right branch supply head of pancreas, okay, and left branch anastomose with the inferior pancreatic artery. We know that this is our inferior pancreatic artery, and it makes anastomosis here. And so left branch supply neck and some body, some part of body of pancreas, some part of body of pancreas. Clear, dear friends? So this was the first branch which arises from the splenic artery. Now let's move forward and see the second branch. As you can see here, look carefully. I have told you that this is our second branch. You can see here, and this artery is called the inferior pancreatic artery, or we can also call it, here is the branch which comes like this, right? This branch is called the inferior pancreatic artery, or we can also call it the transverse pancreatic artery, as it is present transversely. So this artery, as I told you before, that some books says that this transverse artery is a branch of this dorsal pancreatic artery, but some books says that this transverse artery directly arises from the, here is your splenic artery, directly arises from splenic artery and moves in the body of the pancreas transversely. That's why we call it inferior pancreatic artery or transverse pancreatic artery. So this is our inferior or transverse pancreatic artery, right? So the second branch is the inferior pancreatic artery or the transverse pancreatic artery. Inferior pancreatic artery. Then we can also call this artery, as I told you before, what we call it? We call it transverse pancreatic artery. Transverse pancreatic artery. Okay, so I told you that what are the most important points? I have told you, we are not wasting your time. So this artery is mostly responsible to supply blood to the body of pancreas. So it supplies blood to body of pancreas, okay, and anastomose with what? With the left branch of the dorsal pancreatic artery. Anastomose with the left branch of dorsal pancreatic artery. Done. So this was the second branch from the splenic artery. Now let's move towards the third branch from the splenic artery. This is our third branch. This is called the greater pancreatic artery. The greater pancreatic artery, right? This was the second branch, which was called the inferior pancreatic artery. Okay, so the greater pancreatic artery is the third branch. Greater pancreatic artery. This is the third branch. Okay, what does this artery do? Look carefully. It enters the pancreas. At which region? At the body of the pancreas. It enters and makes anastomosis with the inferior pancreatic artery and mostly supplies blood to the body of pancreas. So let me write here, it supply blood to body and tail of pancreas. Done. Then anastomose with inferior, let me write it shortly, or we say transverse pancreatic artery. So it's anastomose, you can see here it has made an anastomosis with the transverse or inferior pancreatic artery, and it gives the branches to the body of the pancreas and some parts of the tail of pancreas also. Clear, friends? Now the fourth branch from this splenic artery is the artery to tail of pancreas, and I will show you that artery right now. So the fourth branch is artery to the tail of pancreas. Follow me, look carefully. Dorsal pancreatic artery, inferior or transverse pancreatic artery, greater pancreatic artery, and we will move further forward. This is a branch of the splenic artery. Okay, then this one gives a branch, this fourth artery in it, it has came to the tail of the pancreas, right, and makes anastomosis with the inferior pancreatic artery or the transverse pancreatic artery. So look carefully again, this is our splenic artery, this is its branch, and look, it is giving a branch like this, and this branch enters the tail of the pancreas and supplies blood to the tail of the pancreas. So that's why we call it artery to the tail of pancreas. So we write here supply blood to tail of pancreas. Okay, and what does it do? It anastomose with transverse pancreatic artery. Clear, friends? These are the four main branches which arises from the splenic artery. Now let's move further forward and see other branches which arises from them. Clear?